Hi, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to take you a little bit back to a video I did about 5 days ago called The Living Hell of Alcohol Addiction and my spells in hospital. Briefly, October 2019, I was taken into hospital with ascites fluid and an infection, which was a bit nip and tuck to say the least. Got through that. Readmitted in January 2020 when the sodium level was very low, and I'll go from there basically. It sounds a bit gruesome, but I just want to outline some of the serious medical conditions which you will come across with alcohol addiction. And my message obviously is again, get sober and stay sober, stay sober, stay sober. That's all I'm going to say. So from the January, I got discharged from hospital, and this fluid was still building up. It's protein apparently the liver can't deal with. And I rang up the hospital and said, we'll get the patient transport to pick you up, and we'll have another take some more fluid off. Basically, it's called a drain. Would you believe? Drain the fluid off you. It takes about 6 hours. And what they do is put a needle inside of your abdomen. It's about 15, 16 inches long, and that drains into a bag really. And a lot of people go in for these drains when they have minimal amount of fluid, maybe 2-3 liters. When I went in, it was March 2020. They're doing 26 litres. 26 litres. So that's equivalent of 26 kilograms in weight of fluid. My stomach was like a woman who'd been pregnant with 3 children. It was horrendous, really. But I also had this terrible umbilical hernia because it's the weakest part of your stomach and the fluid's got to go somewhere. It gives this huge umbilical hernia, and as that gets bigger, the skin around it becomes thinner. And anyway, went from that. We did the drain. Did that. Every month, this fluid would accumulate again. So I had another drain a few weeks later, and then I woke up one night and this hernia was quite large, about the size of a tennis ball. If you can imagine that in your stomach, had torn slightly, and I was bleeding from it. So panic, obviously. 999. Straight into the hospital. Did a minor fix on that. COVID was I was in full flow by then, so they sent me home again. They said, come back on Monday because you've already got a scheduled appointment with the consultant. So on the Monday, I got taken again to hospital by the patient transport people. So the consultant who said, right, you'll have to be admitted, even though the hospitals were basically full with COVID patients. I had some areas for emergency cases, and they put me down for some emergency surgery to have a little procedure done on the liver to open up the portal vein, and that apparently would alleviate this ascites fluid building up. I thought, that's good. I didn't want to go into the general. It was about 3.5 hour operation, quite complex. You've got to be ill enough to warrant it, but well enough to take the surgery, I suppose, in the general anaesthetic. I had that. Terrible pains in my neck. They put a needle right down from here, right into here, but they'll do something with this portal vein. And I thought, well, that's it. Thank God. I'm not going to have this fluid build up and maybe get this hernia sorted out at a later date. However, there is a slight risk that it doesn't work. It didn't work with me. But prior to that, I'd been told this operation, the portal vein, can cause brain damage as well. There's a lot of risks in it. That didn't happen to me. I've got over that. But the fluid was still building up. So the hernia was still there. So I got a call from a senior surgeon who said, do you want me to remove this hernia? We'll do it if possible. If we can, get you in. I said, yeah, please do that. So he scheduled with me for about a month ahead. But unfortunately, this hernia split again. Sounds terrible, isn't it? So I started to pour with blood. The ambulance came. And to be fair, the paramedics did a good job. But one looked a little bit in a bit of a wild panic. However, he put a blast bandage on me, which is basically used for bomb blasts, this sort of thing. The blood still wouldn't stop. Something, Jesus. What's going on here? So they tried another blast bandage. Eventually, they got me into the ambulance. They couldn't get me to sit in the chair to get the ambulance. Had to put me in the stretcher. But I walked with to get the stretcher into the apartment and all that sort of thing. Anyway, got in the hospital and again on the blue light, he radioed ahead for a surgical team to see if they could stitch this. Anyway, I went into resus. I've never been to resus as a patient. I'd visited many times when I was in the police years ago with patients and this sort of thing. So it took me there. There's about 5, 6 doctors in there. There's nobody in apart from me. I thought I was just going to the A&E, but it was resus. So they came along and the surgeon already had his surgical kit ready. And he basically said, time to take a deep breath. We haven't got time for anaesthetic. I'm going to stitch you up as best I can. If this doesn't work, there isn't much more we can do. And I thought, well, again, panic. But I was so much in shock by then, I just let him get on with it. But fortunately, it did work. So I then got put in a ward. Again, because of COVID restrictions, it was very difficult. The hospitals were running at full pelt, really. And I stayed there, and about 2 days later, I had another doctor visit me. He said, we're going to take you to get this hernia fixed as well. And I thought, well, there's a lot going on here in a short space of time. I tried to put that off, but obviously he said, no, there's no way you're going to be discharged unless you have this hernia fixed, because we don't want you to start bleeding again. Obviously, just bleed to death. So I got transferred to another hospital, and I was put on the urgent operating list. But the day I was going to have the surgery, there was a fatal accident somewhere, a bad accident anyway, and most of the surgery rooms were taken up with that. I did have it eventually. So I had the hernia fixed. I had the liver tampered with, basically. They put something in there, they sorted out. Everything must be fine now, I'm thinking. That's 2 operations down. So the fluid was still building up. Every 3 weeks I was going to a local hospital to have this fluid drained off. And the doctors were scratching their heads a little bit. So that happened for about 3 or 4 months. I'd had the operations, the fluid was still building up. So nobody, well, they didn't know really what was going on. And this bright young doctor said, why don't we do the operation in the liver again and just put this shunt or stent or whatever it is, balloon it up by a millimetre? Well, you wouldn't have that done. I said, yes, of course I wouldn't have that done. Went in about 2 weeks later, and then they did that, and the fluid actually settled down. So, all my life to her, really. Yeah, they saved my life at that point, and I got discharged, and I got COVID, would you believe? But that didn't really have much effect on me. I was so well anyway. I fought all that off, and then I just had to see the consultants every sort of 2 to 3 weeks, and then it became every 2 months and this sort of thing. I got a bit stronger and all that sort of kind of. And then we went into 2021. I was getting a little bit better. I had a bit of a family tragedy, well, a massive family tragedy actually. And I pushed myself after that, after my father died, and I just got in my head, I've got to be strong, got to be strong. My mother, really, and I just pushed myself and got myself well again, I suppose. At the end of 2021, I started to feel a bit better and things opened up for me a little bit. But I'll take you to September 2021, and then I'll cover from then onwards in another video. But thanks for listening to me. I'm just trying to take you through some of the horrors that you'll have to go through if you can't stay sober, or if you won't stay sober. It's something that's got to be talked about, because there's a lot of people who will just dance around this sort of subject. So you're going to be ill, this, that, and the other. When you're actually in the hospital, because you think when you're young, you're invincible, you drink this, drink that, and you go out here, there, and everywhere. When you're in hospital and somebody says, the chances are you're probably going to die, then you have massive regrets of it in your life. So get yourself sorted if you can. And the message again, get sober, but more importantly, stay sober. And I'll see you all soon.